On today's episode of Doing Hip and Machine, we are working more on the Ranger in here. I finally got all of these shank bolts in the rear suspension here installed. I got them cut, got them installed, got everything tightened back down. So that was all of the link bolts, the upper links, the lower links on the frame and on the axle. We've swapped all these out, and now I've got the thread ends cut off. So all the bolts have been shanked on this rear end. Added some weld washers to those upper frame mounts, and everything is looking good here now. Everything's all super tight, tightened down. So now we can move on to the next phase of fixing the holes that have slop in this in the rear end. The other ones we got to address are up here, the suspension upper mounts. I've showed this in another video, but we'll show it in here. These are, you can see how wallowed out it is. It's almost a 9/16 hole for a 1/2-inch bolt. So what I've done is I already went and have cut up some weld washers, just some steel weld washers drilled out 1/2 inch. We're gonna get those on there, and then I also have new bolts with the proper shank on them. Just for viewing, this here is the bolts that were in the truck in the rear suspension. You can see the difference here of that extra bit of shank. That's the difference that we put. These are some extras, but I put 8. I had to order 10 of them. But that is the difference of our bolt shank that we now have in there, and then I cut that extra thread off of those. So those are all swapped out, and now we'll weld on some weld washers and swap out those bolts, and everything in the rear end will be done on this Ranger. So that is kind of my goal today, to really knock that out first. I think what I'm gonna have to do is pull these bed sides off to be able to get in here a little better. It's gonna be some tight welding, mainly with this tube in here, and then not much room on that back side either. But we will see what we can do. I'm gonna take this bed side off so I can really get in there. I've got the first weld washer set up, all prepped and ready to tack weld it in and actually weld it up. I'll probably go around and tack them all up and then kind of work my way around welding. I'll get this side done and then go over there. But I figured I'd show you exactly what I'm doing and a couple little things and pointers if you're doing this. I've shown in videos this, the reason why we're doing this is this hole is too sloppy. That is not acceptable for a truck like this. It looks like these got burnt out too big, whether the CAD was too big or the plasma table wasn't dialed in. Whatever the case was, these holes were not big enough, or they were too big. They weren't small enough. And they've had this slop in there, which allows the shock to go up and down, and it's just going to keep making it worse. So we're fixing that, and I've got this one's all tight in here. I snugged it up, and the reason I snugged it up is because when I put that in there, I actually pushed it all the way up. I want to weld that thing all the way up. Then what I want is, I also want the stock hole. You still want to use the strength of that hole, and if you just put it in there and weld wherever, we know that that hole is in there a little bit big. But the function of what this is it's catching the weight of the truck when the suspension's coming up. All the weight of the truck is going down. So I wanted to, before I weld this up, I pushed that bolt all the way up tight. So this one, we'll use an example. I pushed it up there and then snugged the weld washers down. So at least these two holes in the original plate, the bolt shoulder will be riding on that top edge. So we'll double up our thicknesses. That is what we got set up there. I'll go ahead and tack this one up, go around. I used my Dynafile, little air compressed powered Dynafile to get in there. be able to sand that paint off. And yeah, we'll see what we can do for some yoga to get set up in here and get those welded. Hopefully not too horribly. There's only going to be, the backside of this. It shouldn't be too bad. Got the welder set up over here. We'll throw a clamp on there and burn these in. Just like that, a little TV magic. They're all painted and the shocks are bolted back in. Truck's off the jack stands, sitting on his own weight again. I got the rear end project all wrapped up now as far as fixing the noise that was back here. So the loose bolts that were in the upper shock mounts and then in the link mounts, those are all taken care of now. All of the upper bolts and then all of the link suspension pivot bolts, those are all brand new. And now we can give it the shake test and it no longer has a clunking sound like something's loose. So I think now that I know we tore it all apart, the noise that we were really hearing, more so than the link pivots, those weren't near as bad as what these upper shock bolts were. So that is now a done project. Once I'm done making this video, first thing I'm going to do is bolt these bedsides back on so they're not laying up there anymore and vulnerable. And then that will actually be the rear end kind of completely done because I don't have to mess with that anymore. And we'll be moving on to the front. So front of the Ranger right now, it's a one-piece pinned hood. And we're going to get, probably still use the pins attached to a frame. Going to build like a frame and then do a tilt style forward hood. This will be the first one that I've ever done like this. So kind of pretty cool project for me to learn some new stuff on and build something new. So that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna start diving into that. Actually later I'm probably gonna start working on coming up with a plan, pull the hood and coming up with a plan of what I'm gonna build. And as far as then the beams, this is getting a set of my beams. I have started, I got one spindle. I'm gonna start working on getting the next spindle going and get those because it's using my same spindles, the same spindles the Chevy's getting that are over there, this is getting, but the track width on this Ranger doesn't match what I do for the I Beam Chevys. These full-size trucks I'm doing 91 inches for track width on the outside of the tire, and this Ranger, I'd have to double check it, it's 86 to 88 inches, I think, somewhere in there for track width. So I would use my beam that I already have existed and drawn up if I was going to be making the beam pivot mounts. But this truck, we're gonna use the same steering and use the beam pivots and even the radius arms that it already has. We're just swapping the main beam and my spindles to, I've addressed it in a different video, but one, fix the positive camber that this thing has in the tire. It's probably positive like 2 degrees. And then also to get away from the factory ball joint style end on the beam and go to the uniball and Heim end that is on my beam there. So working on a set of those. I've got the CAD work done for, I've actually just taken my beam and I've shortened it a little bit. Took dimensions off this at the ride height and the beam pivots and drew it in CAD. And I've got a set of beams now drawn up that I'm going to be building for this that are slightly shorter than my beam there. And then they're slightly narrower. So same design, they look the same. They're just a little bit smaller to fit this thing. So that will actually kind of double for me. That's the cool thing is now I have 2 different beams designed that will fit a little bit different range of track widths, a little bit narrower one and then a little bit wider one. So that'll be kind of cool. Kind of the focus now the rear end of that Ranger's done, is shifting to getting both of these progressing with getting beams and getting them mounted. That one's going to be much easier as I'm finishing up the Chevy production of building stuff on the bench there, getting ready to start mounting those. The Ranger, I really just got to start building, get them cut and get them built. And then they're going to really, for the most part, bolt right in. And then we're going to use the steering swingers that it already has, but we're going to try to get, try to see if we can do straight tie rods and redo those 2 front tie rods and get rid of the bends. So anyways, yeah, I just really rambled and said all the things that now I'm going to set the camera up and I guess start doing.